trust me, all day of the week. Right now, I've been at RSA for 700 years, and I'm pretty burnt out, but it is what it is. Give us an introduction on who you are, what you do, and what we're going to chat about here quickly.
Yeah, for sure. I'm Derek Mackey. I'm head of product at Veracode. I've been in security 20 plus years. Started my career in the identity space back when Sun Identity Manager was a thing, doing automated provisioning, deprovisioning, and I've sort of bounced around domains as I've gotten bored of the previous domain and interested in a new one. So spent some time in SOC and CloudSec and AppSec. I founded Longbow Security in 2019 with a co-founder of mine, and then we sold the company last year to Veracode, and of course now
RSA like a year ago, right?
It was a year ago, yeah. So last year was a bit of a
kind of like the anniversary.
It is indeed.
Cool. So in the realm of what Veracode does, like what's the new hotness? What, not necessarily the show, but just in general, like what's the cool shit?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, as you know, Veracode is kind of the OG in AppSec, right? It founded in 2006. That is in security.
That's like 7 billion years.
Right. And AppSec continues to be a focus of Veracode. Continues to be a huge risk area. I mean, obviously, as you look in, more and more humans can become developers in the AI LLM world that we live in. And we have seen studies recently that suggest that actually LLMs are not getting better. They're actually staying about the same in terms of producing secure code, in terms of producing weaknesses. And Veracode, we're going to release a study here in the next probably couple of months with the data and research that we've done, really fascinating research. But in short, as the models have matured and gotten much better in terms of developing functional code that's semantically and syntactically more accurate.
Say those words fast.
Yeah, right. But security-wise, they're not getting better. And so what does that mean? For AppSec, it means this market is continuing to be really, really critical in helping those developers and folks that are actually just prompting to write applications, making sure it's secure. And then we acquired a company recently called Phylum, which is in the open source supply chain security space. And obviously it's another area that's going to continue to be a focus as developers are wanting to grab more and more open source and build on open source. Is it secure? Does it have malware, et cetera? So anyways, that's the market we're in today, but we're continuing to expand beyond AppSec in the broader kind of application risk management space. So Longbow Security was a application security posture management, which
for those listening.
Forget the buzzwords. What it means is, hey, is my risk that's identified left actually ending up in runtime? And then that risk that's in runtime, where did it come from? How can we remediate risk one-to-many? Et cetera. So you're going to see Veracode continue to expand in sort of the broader risk management space.
It's a pretty big area to cover. I guess the one thing that just jumps to mind, right, is like these, because I mean, I'm admittedly a really crappy coder. Like I can write code, but I hate it and I'm not good at it. But now with this vibe coding stuff, I mean, you can wake up on Monday and be like, oh, I want an application that will help me walk around Moscone and not pick up a hypodermic needle. Totally. And you can code it up.
100%.
But how does that possibly get secured? Like, what's the fix?
Yeah, so a few things. The other announcement we just made pre-RSA was we developed a new AI, sorry to use AI bingo, but we got a patent granted for our AI fix engine, which essentially for code weaknesses automates the remediation of that risk using some AI technology that we developed. So part of the problem is, or part of the solution, I should say, is kind of this idea of a code purifier, right? So Veracode directly interacting with your LLM, purifying, securing that code, and then helping you fix any risk that's identified. So that's part of the solution, is making sort of SAST or static scanning much more seamless and integrated into developer tools, into the IDE. So that's been a big investment area for us over the last 12 months is some new IDE plugins that we've developed, which are much more seamless. You're going to see us expand into some of the new IDEs, speaking of vibe coding, that some of the vibe coders are excited to be using. And you're going to continue to see us invest in sort of where the code lives, which is in the repo. So after you've done vibe coding, it
Run it
probably
on.
ends up in a repo. We help surface and then remediate that risk there.
So then I guess the cost model is the other side of that equation that gets really interesting, because like I can go get a subscription to Replit or Replit, I think that's how you say it, but
Yeah.
like for a couple $100 a year, and I can vibe code till my fingers fall off.
Yeah, that's right.
But how do you guys, or will you even move towards taking care of that level of sprawl for people? Like, could I buy access to you guys through Replit for, you know, an additional fee, or is that just you guys are going to focus on enterprise and outside the bounds of the regular average everyday user that's vibe coding?
Yeah, good question. I think so. Today, you know, majority, more than 50% of our customers are enterprise, but we do have quite a few, you know, 10, 20, 30, 40 developer shop companies that are leveraging Veracode today. So yeah, I think as you know, sort of this vibe coding, since we're on the topic, this vibe coding generation.
It's kind of cool, right?
Yeah, that's the cool buzzword around here. I think you're going to see us, frankly, be more embedded and more kind of PLG, as in integrated directly into the IDE, directly integrated into an LLM. So sort of this idea of seamless security is just happening as you're vibe coding.
And then the cost model will, I mean, it's a decision point, right? Ultimately.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. So it's, you know, I guess the other argument too is most of those folks that are just doing vibe coding at home or whatever, they're not even going to necessarily concern themselves with the secure side of the application. They're just building an app for something.
Probably not, but they should.
They should,
right?
Yeah. But then they're going to sit there and go like, well,
because their customers will probably at some point, at some stage, they'll demand it.
Well, and if you're hooking into data, you're potentially liable for it.
That's right.
You know, so I don't want to go to, well, I guess I don't go to jail for data breaches because there'd be a lot of people in jail. But yeah.
The vibe coder, Levisio, is that how you say him? Have you been following him? So he's been developing that flight simulator, vibe coding directly through an LLM. And speaking of security, at one point, he had a vulnerability where someone was able to hack the game, and then, I mean, it's a game, so not very detrimental, but basically went around and caused havoc. And so, long story short, I think in the end, consumers' security will be important and will continue to be important. And I think
it'll probably be kind of like what we have with multi-factor auth now, where it's just part of the experience.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Which is good, because, you know, I think like people gripe about MFA or whatever, and now when people gripe about MFA, I just say, well, just don't buckle your seatbelt. That's right. Because it's kind of the same thing.
Exactly.
So where do we go with this? Like, what's the future look like in this space?
Yeah, I think, you know, prevention is a big part of, you know, the Veracode team is going to be pounding the table on. So, for example, we just released we're about to release a new solution called Package Firewall. So, in the supply chain or open security space, open source security space, what does that mean? So, it's actually preventing a developer. So, we know there's a malicious software package that exists. And it's actually preventing a developer from pulling that package down and ever embedding that third-party risk in an application. So rather than just detecting it after we've started using and embedding that open source library and that risk is already manifested and potentially in production, we actually can prevent all of your developers from ever downloading that package. And so as part of the Finalm acquisition, we acquired some really interesting technology around the threat intelligence that they gather on malicious actors, malicious packages generally. And so you're going to see us move into the prevention space, and then also being able to use that threat intelligence in other parts in the non-application security space. So even embedding that, for example, in your SOC, right? Because we have really interesting insight on IP addresses associated with those malicious actors that are trying to embed risk in supply chain. So prevention is going to be a big part of the future with Veracode.
Interesting. So last question here, because he's got other stuff to do than sit around and talk to me. Like, what's been your impression of RSA so far this year? Have you been to the floor at all?
I have, yeah. I quickly went in.
Bonkers,
went in and left as quickly.
It's like sensory overload.
It really is.
I was over there a while ago, and there was this dude like jumping over like obstacles while they were throwing T-shirts at him.
I mean, I have so much empathy for CISOs having to walk around there. Like, makes sense.
Yeah.
There's 80% of the messages down there are just a total overlap, but there is, there are some diamond in the rough, I don't want to call out any specific, vendors, but there's some really interesting technology, one sort of in the hardened container image space, which I think is really, really interesting. So not just ensuring your container images are hardened, but even after risk is identified, actually going back and hardening that image
like
automatically.
retroactively.
Exactly. So now you have this, not just a secure repo of approved images, but you're constantly maintaining secure images. So I say that to say there's still some really, really interesting technology that's being developed that's, but you've got to swim through the noise.
Yeah, you got to get through the t-shirts. And I will say the best branding thing I saw so far, which I gave the CMO like a big high five, was they had a sign up that said, "We're the goat." And they had actual goats.
Stop it.
Yeah, swear to God, little
Didn't see
pygmy
that
goats.
one.
Yeah, I was like, that's some cool shit. Like, okay, of all the stuff, yeah, if you're gonna call yourself the goat, you better have a goat. And they had a whole thing full of goats. So here we are. Those same people had the puppies last year. So,
Or what does that say about the industry? Though?
we've hit peak bonkers. Yeah. I mean, before COVID, we had kind of, I thought, peaked out.
Yeah.
Nah, we're right back. We've crossed the chasm. Yeah. All right. So if you're listening to this, as fast as I can get it out, go check out Veracode. Go talk to Derek. They're doing cool stuff, and don't vibe code crappy apps.